In this segment, we're going to learn how to create the applique star. The applique star will consist of a placement item or object, a tack down object, and a cover stitch object. We're going to create all three of those in my design center. So we're going to start off with my design center. We're going to select the shape tool. We're going to select the star, do OK. We're going to resize this star, and I'm going to change it to 2.7, which is the medium size star of the three stars. So I'm going to click on this icon here until it goes down to 2.7. I'm going to do an OK. Now I'm going to assign a line property value to that outside star. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select the running stitch, and I'm going to make that red so I know that that's going to be acting as the placement stitch. I'm going to come back over here, click on my fill bucket, and make sure I'm touching directly on a line of the star to apply it. It changed from black to red. I'm going to next, and I'm going to change this to a longer length, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to make that be 120. And 120 is equivalent to 3.0 millimeters. If you're more comfortable with millimeters, you can always change your units by clicking the icon up here. Go to page 9 of 12. Right now the unit is in inches. I just select here, go to millimeters, and do OK, and now you can see that's 3.0. At this point, I'm going to save this object, which represents the placement stitch, to memory. I'm going to click on memory. I would suggest that you start with a clean, empty thumb drive in the thumb drive slot of your machine, and then save it to the USB stick icon. I'm now going to go return. I'm using that same star, but now I'm going to apply a different line value or line property. I'm going to use this triple stitch as my tack down, and then I'm going to make it be gray so I know it's a different color than the red, and then I'm going to do OK. And again, I've got my bucket selected, so I'm going to touch that star, and it changed to gray. I'm going to do next, and I'm going to change the size of the stitch to 2.5 millimeter. And I'm going to do OK, and then I'm going to save this one into memory, which again is on the thumb drive. I'm going to do a return, and I'm going to apply that, use that same star. I'm going to select a different line property. This time it's going to be the satin stitch. I'm going to make that turquoise, and I'm going to, again, got the bucket selected, I'm going to touch my star, and it turned to blue. I'm going to do a next, and I'm going to change the width of that satin stitch to 3.5 millimeters, and I'm going to do OK, and then I'm going to save that to memory. At this point, I'm done with creating my stars. I'm going to go back home and show you what is occurring on my thumb drive. So if I go to embroidery, and I go to the thumb drive, and I delete the pocket, you can see that there are three different files that I just created. The machine creates unique naming conventions. I'm going to go to my computer and go ahead and change those naming conventions to something that I'm more familiar with, and this is going to be P medium star, TD medium star, and C medium star. And you can see the extensions are PHX. So those are the ones that we're interested in. You'll notice that the embroidery machine has created three different files with, actually 6 files, 3 with the extension of PHX and 3 with the extension of PM9. We're going to rename the ones that have the extension of PHX. I wrote down when I was over at the embroidery machine which file was representing which shape, as I showed you at the last video. So the one ending with 450 is the placement, one ending with the 460 is the tack down, and the one ending with 470 is the cover. So I'm going to rename these so that we can know what we're looking at when we are doing that. So I'm going to go do a right mouse click. I'm going to rename. It's highlighting the section that I need to rename. And 450 is a placement, so I'm going to put the letter P, so I know this is a placement one. I know this is a medium star, so I'm going to do M-E-D and then S-T-A-R. I'm going to do that for all of the subsequent names and then go back over to the embroidery machine. I'm now going to show you how to take those 3 renamed files and create one embroidery file from that. So I'm going to go to embroidery, I'm going to go to the pocket, go to my thumb drive. The thumb drive's got a B pocket folder on it, which is where the files were saved. You can see that they're completely renamed. I know that the order of this would be placement, tack down, and cover, so I'm going to do the red one first. I'm going to add the tack down next, and then I'm going to add the cover stitch. So at this point you can see the placement, tack down, cover stitch for the first star that we created. So, and this is a medium star, and that's how it was labeled. I'm going to save this grouping into my memory on my thumb drive. And what that's going to do is if I go to my thumb drive again, you will see that the embroidery machine has created another file with the unique naming convention that comprises of all these 3 because we just processed that. Now I will go back and name that as medium star so that I know that's the complete one. Again, all these files are part of the project, so you don't have to create them, but this gives you the opportunity to learn how to do this, and I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you. So now we've got our applique stars created. What we're going to do now is define the inside dimensions of our placemat. Normally placemats are either 12 by 18 or 14 by 20. I'm going to split the difference. And splitting the difference for me, that means that the inside area where I'm going to put all my objects is going to be 9 by 15. So I'm going to create that frame so I know to design within that. So to create the frame to place all the design elements, I'm going to go to my design center. I'm going to click on the square, the shapes, click on the square, do an OK, size that. I'm going to make it 9 inches wide. And 15 inches high. I'm going to go ahead and assign a line value. I'm going to create 3 different elements using this frame, and I'm going to do the first one going to be a placement stitch that I'm going to use during our stitch out, and a tack down, and then the cover stitch. So I'm going to use a selected placement, make it red, and I'm going to select the bucket and click on my line, and you can see it turned red. And I'm going to do next. I'm going to change the size of this to 1.120, just like I did for the stars. I'm doing OK. Then I'm going to put that in memory on my thumb drive. I'm going to do a return. So now I'm going to use that same frame similar to how I did the stars, and I'm going to change my line value. I'm going to select the triple stitch, which is going to act as my my tack down stitch. I'm going to make that gray so I know it's different than my placement. I've already got my bucket selected. I'm going to touch the line, it turned from red to gray. I'm going to do next, and I'm going to change the size of this to 0.10. I'm going to go to OK. I'm going to go to put that into memory, and then I'm going to do a return. And one last thing, I'm going to now select the zigzag. I'm going to make it green. I'm going to say OK. And there's going to be my cover stitch that's going to outline the inside of the design. Again, I'm going to select, do the bucket. I'm going to touch the line. It turned to green. I'm going to do next. And now I'm going to change that size to 140. And then I'm going to save that to memory. The next step is now to start laying out all the different parts for the inside of the placemat. I'm going to go to the embroidery. I'm going to select on the pocket, go to my B pocket, which is where all the files are at. I'm going to bring up the frame that we just created. So I know that I need to keep all my objects that I add to this inside that. I'm going to do a set. And because I know I'm going to do lettering, I'm going to go ahead and add the grid, which is just click on this icon up here. You can see we're working with a 10 5/8 by 16 inch frame. We don't have any grit on right now, but we can choose between 1 inch and 3/8 of an inch. I think I'm going to do the 3/8 just for getting it, have more space to align with. And voila, now we're ready to do our lettering. Okay, now that I have the frame ready and I've got the grid on there, I'm going to add the words. I'm going to go to Add, select my lettering, select number 3 for the font that I want to use. And start with the letter H. Then I'm going to go lowercase a, p, p, y. I'm going to do a set. I'll go to Edit, do a rotate it 90 degrees so it's in the right direction for the placemat. Place it over here. I'll fine tune that here in a minute. I want to add the next word, so I'm going to do an OK. Add, go back to the fonts, select number 3, do the new N, E, W. Add that, rotate, and continue with the next pieces. I'll show you how that's going to look when I'm done. I have added the words and spaced them out really nice, and now I'm going to add the cute little fireworks design. To add the fireworks design, I'm going to click on the word Add. I'm going to go to the pocket, go to my thumb drive, and there's the fireworks design. It's actually called 4th of July. It's available on embroidery. I brought it in. I'm going to move it out of the way. I'm going to do the edit, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees because that's the orientation for the direction of the placemat. I'm going to go back to edit and do a duplicate of that. So just click hitting the duplicate, go bring it over here and duplicate one more time and bring it here. At this point I'm going to play with the rotate function and rotate the designs about 10 degrees at a time, see how I like them, move them around and get them where I want to put them. So you just play with this to place them wherever you want to before we start adding the stars. I have got my fireworks in generally the place that I'm going to put them. I may move them around when I add my applique stars, which I'm going to do now. I'm going to locate those applique stars that we created earlier. I'm going to do Add, go to the pocket, go to the thumb drive. On my thumb drive, all the things that I created from my design center are in the B pocket folder. Remember, we renamed these to be large star, medium star, and small star that has all 3 elements, the placement, tack down, and cover. So I'm going to do the large star. I'm going to do a set. I'm going to zoom in over here. If I were to put my stylus on the star and move it, you can see that I'm only moving the cover stitch one. The placement and tack down, the placement and tack down are still where I brought it in. So I'm going to undo this. In order for me to move all three objects at the same time, I'm going to group them. And the way I do that is I'm going to use this function down here, select, and go ahead and click on the three little icons there. I see the word set. I know that I have a little red box around the cover stitch because that's the last item that I brought in, and that's the item that's selected. So I'm going to do set, change that to little red box there. I'm going to go up in my sequence by clicking the arrow here. I have another little red box that's putting a box around the tack down stitch. I'm going to do set. I'm going to go up one more. That's putting the box around the placement stitch, and I'm going to do set. At this point, all three of those are selected. Now when I put my cursor inside that star to move it, all three pieces are moving at the same time. I'm going to go back to 0. I can move it right here. Now if I go to edit, if I wanted to rotate it, I don't have the ability to rotate. That feature is not available to me with the three objects selected. So what I need to do there is click somewhere else in the background, click on that star when I get the red box around it, and I can rotate the cover stitch. Let's go with 20 degrees, so go 10, 20. That's moved the cover stitch, but I want to also move the tack down and the placement stitch. So I'm going to go use a select down here, go back one. Now my tack down stitch is selected. You see the box around it, and I'm going to do 10, 20, and I want to do one more time to get that placement stitch, and that red box is around the placement stitch. 10, 20. So now I have that star exactly where I want it and the angle that I want, and I'm going to go ahead and do that with the medium star and the small star. I'm going to put the medium star up in here and the small star up here. Once I do that, we'll continue on. At this point, I have arranged my three stars, large, medium, and small, in the general area that I want, and I've got my fireworks. I think I'm happy with that layout. So what I'm going to do now is change the color of these different elements so that they're the colors that I'm going to stitch out in. So I'm going to select this icon here, which has got the thread and the colors. You can see I get the whole list of all my objects that are on the screen. I'm going to start with the word happy, and I'm going to select this item right here. Our colors for our project that we did as Brother Ambassadors is fuchsia, turquoise, silver, and navy. So I'm going to stitch these different elements in the fuchsia, turquoise, or silver colors. So I'm going to start with the word happy, and I'm going to select here the fuchsia. I'm going to just touch on that and change the H. And so forth. You can see as I'm changing, you see it up here and you see it on the screen. I'm going to scroll up, and I'm going to do the same thing with new, and I'm going to make that silver. Year, I'm going to make turquoise. So I'm going to do the turquoise. (2020), I wanted to make it a little bit more fun, so I'm going to do the 2s in fuchsia and the 0 in turquoise, just to change it up a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the groups of fireworks. I'm going to click on that. The yellow will be silver. The red will be fuchsia. And the blue will be turquoise. So if I see yellow, I'm going to go to the silver, so it's gray. So yellow is gray. Red is fuchsia. Blue is turquoise. And yellow again is the gray or silver here. Moving forward, repeating all that one more time. Whoops. That was supposed to be silver. Then fuchsia. Then turquoise. Then gray. And one more thing we want to change colors on are the stars. If I click on the star here, it's the big one down here, and I want that to be fuchsia, the cover stitch. The next one is the medium one, and I'm going to keep that turquoise. And then the last one is the small one, and I'm going to make that silver. So at this point we have everything colored the proper way, and so it's going to prompt us for the correct thread colors when we do the stitch out. I now have all the pieces colored the way I want them, and I'm going to do an OK. And again, I'm going to periodically save this so I know I have a most recent copy in case I get pulled away or have to stop. So I'm going to do that in memory. And you can always check your latest time and date stamp on your thumb drive when you get ready to start back up. I have just finished changing all the shapes to the proper color that I want, being the fuchsia, turquoise, silver color scheme that we're using for our project. The next thing I want to do is to create the fill. In order to create the fill, I need to create an outline. So I'm going to create an outline of the different shapes. Before I do that, I already know I want the fill to be around all these different shapes. I don't want to include this green frame within the fill. So I'm going to select it by clicking on it, making sure I've got the red selection around it. Then I'm going to say delete. And then I'm going to say OK. The icon over here under edit, the little flower, is to do the outline. If I just click on that now, it's only going to show me one item that it had selected. So I want to do all. So I'm going to do a cancel. Then I'm going to use my feature over here of select and to select multiple. So I'm going to click on my little icon here. Now instead of moving around through the shapes up here, another nice feature of this option is if I click right here, it's going to select everything, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to do an OK. Now I have everything selected. Now I'm going to select under edit this little flower icon to create my outline. And it's asking me now how far do I want from the shapes the distance for the fill to start. So I'm going to go, and I find that for me, looking at on the screen and seeing how far that black outline is moving, I like 0.060. So I'm just going to go there because I've done this a few times and that's where I like it. And I'm going to go put that in memory. And what that is telling me is where to locate it in my design center to create the fill. It's going to, you have to be in design center to get up to pick up that outline, and it's going to be in the stamp pattern list, which is going to be the circle square icon. So I'm happy with that. I'm not going to create my fill quite yet. I want to add those two additional frames that we created, the placement and tack down, because I want to be able to put fabric on the back of the placemat after I stitch out everything. So I'm going to do an add, go to the pocket, I'm going to locate my placement frame and put that in place. Then I'm going to do an add, pocket, locate my tack down, And now I'm going to go create the fill. I'm going to do an add. I have the option to go to my design center, and I'm going to go to my design center. I'm going to create a boundary box for my fill. So I'm going to go to the shape icon or the stamp icon, select the square, do OK, size that to 9 by 15. Okay. This is just a bounding box to the outside edges of the fill, so I'm going to assign a line value, but in this case I'm going to say I don't want any line value. I don't want this to be stitched out at all. It's just a guide. I'm going to do the bucket. While I've selected the no line value on the other screen, I still have to select the bucket and actually apply that property to the line of the rectangle I just selected. Now I'm going to bring in the outline that I created in Embroidery Edit. So again, it's told me to go to the circle and square icon. I'm going to do that. I have the same flower that I had in Embroidery Edit. As you can see, I've been playing a lot with this, but the one that you want to select is the upper left corner. It's always going to be the very first one in that first row. Is the most recent one that you created. Now you can see that I've got the outline and I've got the frame. So now I'm going to add the fill. So I'm going to click on my fill icon. I'm going to go select it. This is the fill I want. I'm going to make it navy. I'm going to apply it by clicking on the bucket here. And I want to make sure, looking on the screen, that I'm going to click in the background and not in any of the shapes. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now I've got my fill applied. I'm going to go to next. You can see that the fill, this is how the fill is going to look right now for stitching out, and there's no outline around any of the shapes. With the upgrade to 2.0 upgrade, the default value for the outline is off. I prefer in this scenario to have it on, so I'm going to select that. I'm going to do it on, and I'm going to do OK. And it's so now you can see there's an outline around each of the shapes and then also around the outside, and that's an outline within the fill. The other thing I'm going to change is the size. I'm going to go to make it 150, so I'm going to increase it by 50%. And it's going to process that information. So now I have everything that I want. I've got the 150, I've got the outline on, and I'm going to save this to memory because I may want to use it, or I don't want to lose all the work that I've just did. So I'm going to do save it to memory, save it to my thumb drive. Now I'm going to select set. This is where it's telling me it's going to convert what I just created into an embroidery, and it's going to exit my design center and bring me back to Embroidery Edit, which is where I came from, and I do want all that, so I'm going to say yes. Okay. You'll notice that it's added that fill that we just created to the end of our stitch out, which is great. So we've got the finishing of the applique here. We're going to put our backing fabric on. We're going to tack that, or place it down and tack it down, and now we've got the fill. We have just one more thing we have to do, and that is finish it off with that satin stitch. So I'm going to go back, locate my satin stitch that I used as an outline, make sure I had everything contained, and there it is. So I have all the pieces ready for this to be stitched out. I'm pleased with what I've got here. I'm going to save it to memory because I probably want to make more than one placemat. We now have all our pieces that we need, and all we have to do is click on embroidery, and I like to go into the needle position, so now we can just stitch out one by one. I have loaded my design and I'm starting to stitch it out. The first part's going to be the lettering, so happy is going to be stitched out. Then I'll change my thread color to silver for the new. Then year, I'm going to change to turquoise, and 2020 I will do in 2 different colors. Then we'll move on to the fireworks, and then last but not least the stars, and then to finish it up we will add some fabric to the back to cover all that stitch out and do the fill and the final touches. I have just finished stitching out all the words, and now I'm getting ready to do the 3 different fireworks embroidery designs. Now in this case I'm going to switch to metallic thread because I want to make it look as if we're looking at the fireworks in the sky and they're sparkly. I wasn't able to do a color sort on this design because my applique stars are 3 different layers and the color sort does not work when you have anything that has layers in it. So to minimize my changing of the metallic thread color, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first stitch out this first element from my first firework. When that is done, I'm going to move down the color changes and go to the one that's got the stars for that one. And I'm going to continue moving down through and just pick up and stitch out all the silver. Then I'll go back. Once I'm done with all the silver, I'll go back up, and that's where I started. So I'm going to go, I would change my thread to the fuchsia metallic thread and do all the fuchsias, then go back up and do all the turquoise part with turquoise metallic thread. And when I'm all done, then I'm ready to do the applique. But this is a quick little tip to walk you through how you can stitch out a design without having to change your thread at each step. At this point, I finished stitching out all the fireworks with metallic thread. I'm getting ready now to do the first star applique. As part of our creating this in Design Center, you're going to notice that the placement stitch actually runs twice. Don't worry about that. It's one of the characteristics of my Design Center that the running stitch will run twice. If you wanted to stop it after it did that first round and do your little scissors and move forward to the next step, which is a tack down, you could do that. And then you can go ahead and place your fabric to make sure it covers the star. And tack that down and trim it and come back and do the satin stitch. You'll do this for all 3 stars. I have just finished stitching out the front or the top of the placemat and everything looks pretty good. I've also changed the thread in my embroidery machine to the dark navy, and I did the placement stitch for that fabric panel because when I turn this around it's not quite as pretty on the back side. So I'm going to place right side up my fabric panel over the placement stitches, center that. I'm going to then just hold this in place temporarily with 2 pins at either end. I'm then going to flip this over real quick, pin my corners, and it's easier if I do this over the edge of the table, so you may not see this right away, but I'm going to pin my corners away from that placement stitch to secure that fabric panel. Once I have those pinned in the 4 corners, I'm going to turn this over and make sure everything is flat and captured, and then I'm going to remove those temporary pins and return that back to the embroidery unit and tack that down. Once I tack down the panel fabric on the back, I will remove the hoop again, keep everything intact, and trim the excess fabric. Now that the placemat's been completely stitched out, it's time to trim it. The first thing we're going to do is move that backing fabric all the way back. Just fold it back. Make sure it's away from that edge. Now we've got the top, the batting, and the no-show mesh. and trim 1.5 inches from the edge of that satin stitch, the outside edge. Be consistent with where you're measuring that 1.5 and do that to all 4 sides. Now that we've cut the 1.5 inch all the way around the inside part of the placemat, what we're going to do is cut 4.5 inches from that same edge out. We're now trimming the background fabric. We now have trimmed our placemat. We got 1 1/2 from the satin border for the 3 layers of the top batting and no-show mesh. Then we measured 4.5 from that same location to trim the backing. Our placemat. The next thing is to press the borders. We're going to do a light starch on all the backing fabric, and we're folding it to our edge and folding it one more time and press. So you're first going to press the top and bottom. Like I said, you're going to press it to the fold and then press it one more over, where it's just about a 1/16 or less from that satin edge. You can do that for both the top and the bottom. Then you're going to take the sides and do the same thing. You're going to press them over and press it over again. Now, to get that nice 45 degree, you'll unfold that side, bring it in at a 45 degree, press that down, press this one over, and then bring this in. And you'll get a nice 45 degree angle at the corners. At this point, I will pin this, and then I will do a top stitch to finish it off. As you can see, I've pinned down in that inside area of the border that I've folded over, and now I'm just going to do a top stitch. And the top stitch finishes it off. I happen to use black thread in the top and bottom, and I think it matches just fine. But I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and I hope you have success as well. Thank you.